Syria, Iran, China, and North Korea. The 4 countries have no access to Facebook.
If you've ever tried to open Google or Facebook while sitting in a hotel lobby in Beijing, you'll know the feeling. The endless loading circle, the frozen page, the quiet realization that you're not going to get through. This isn't because of bad Wi-Fi. It's because you're inside one of the most ambitious censorship projects the world has ever seen. The Great Firewall of China. But this didn't appear overnight. Like the ancient wall it's named after, this digital barrier was built in stages, layer by layer, in response to very specific political fears. To understand it, we need to start at the moment China first connected to the internet. It was 1994 when China's first official internet connection went live, linking the Institute of High Energy Physics in Beijing to the outside world. The country was deep in the economic reforms of Deng Xiaoping, a leader who was opening markets but wary of foreign ideas. He had a saying for it: if you open the window, both fresh air and flies will blow in. The internet, in his eyes, was both an opportunity for growth and a risk to political stability. Within 2 years, the government moved to set boundaries. In 1996, Premier Li Peng signed the interim regulations on the management of international networking. In plain terms, it was China's first internet rulebook. It said the online world would be managed in a healthy and correct way. Some would say that this was a vague statement to cover almost anything the state decided was unacceptable. For a while, the internet was small in scale and easy to monitor. But in 1998, something happened that would change its trajectory. A new opposition group, the China Democracy Party (CDP), began using the web to connect and organize. To the Communist Party, this was an early warning, a glimpse of how the internet could help build networks they couldn't control. The response was swift. The CDP was banned, its leaders arrested, and in the same year, the Ministry of Public Security launched a huge project called the Golden Shield. Although we often talk about the Great Firewall today, in official terms, it's just one part of the Golden Shield. This project wasn't just about blocking websites. It aimed to integrate policing, population databases, surveillance cameras, and internet control into a single digital security system. It was rolled out in phases. The first phase, which was from 1998 to 2006, built the backbone nationwide: networks, shared databases, and basic online filtering. The second phase, which began from 2006 to 2008, refined the system and expanded its reach. By then, internet use was growing fast, and the controls had to grow with it. In the beginning, the Great Firewall didn't use the advanced, AI-driven methods it has today. It started with a few basic tools, simple by modern standards, but effective enough for the time. The first was something called IP blocking. Think of every website on the internet as living at a specific street address, but instead of a street name, that address is a string of numbers called an IP address. When you try to visit a website, your computer sends a request to that address. With IP blocking, the firewall keeps a special blacklist of addresses it doesn't want you to reach. If the address you're looking for is on that list, your request is stopped instantly, often before it even leaves China's networks. It's like a security guard at the border looking at the destination on your package and saying, "No, we don't send anything there." Although, one side effect is that if several different websites share the same server and therefore the same IP address, blocking that one address can wipe out access to all of them at once. The second method was DNS poisoning. DNS stands for Domain Name System, and it works like the internet's phone book or address book. When you type facebook.com into your browser, your computer needs to figure out the exact IP address where that site lives. So it asks a DNS server for directions. Normally, The DNS looks it up and sends you to the right place. But with DNS poisoning, the firewall steps in and gives your computer fake directions, pointing it to the wrong location or even to a dead end. From your point of view, the page just fails to load. But behind the scenes, it's as if you looked up a friend's phone number and got connected to a random stranger instead. As China's internet use expanded and more people started using search engines and social media, the firewall added another layer: keyword filtering. This one was straightforward. If the text of a web address or your search contains certain sensitive words, the connection is immediately cut. For example, if you tried to search for Tiananmen in reference to the 1989 protests, the system would see that word in your request and simply refuse to let it through. It's like sending a letter with a banned word on the envelope. The postal system spots it and throws it away before it even leaves the sorting room. As technology advanced, so did the firewall's precision. One of the most important developments was Deep Packet Inspection (DPI). Imagine postal inspectors opening envelopes, scanning the contents, and throwing away anything with forbidden material before it reaches you. That's DPI for internet traffic. Only it happens in milliseconds. If DPI detected a banned term, the system could trigger a TCP reset, sending fake connection closed messages to both sides of the conversation, cutting it off instantly. This meant the firewall could block specific pieces of content, even if the overall site wasn't banned. By 2008, when Beijing hosted the Olympic Games, the Great Firewall was already a powerful presence. Foreign journalists complained about blocked news sites and restricted access, while Chinese officials walked a fine line, wanting to show an open, modern image without giving up control. Behind the scenes, censorship teams were larger than ever, with internet companies required to monitor themselves. This self-censorship system meant platforms like Baidu or WeChat weren't just obeying rules. They were actively scanning and deleting content to stay in good standing with the authorities. In 2013, a new player took the lead: the Cyberspace Administration of China (CAC). This agency became the central command for online control, turning Communist Party policy into technical instructions. That same year, the term Internet sovereignty became a cornerstone of Chinese policy, the idea that each country should have the right to decide what its citizens can and can't see online. From here, censorship became more coordinated, with faster takedowns and broader reach. In 2024, for example, the CAC reported closing thousands of websites and deleting millions of posts and campaigns against what it called illegal and harmful content. By this point, the firewall wasn't just a wall, it was a living system, adapting to the internet's growth and constantly adding new layers. But it was also about to face a challenge from the other side: people determined to break through it. By the mid-2010s, the Great Firewall was no longer an experiment. It was a permanent fixture of China's digital life. But as it grew more sophisticated, so did the tools designed to get around it. What followed was a constant push and pull, a digital arms race between those trying to climb over the wall and those reinforcing it. In the beginning, bypassing the firewall was almost laughably simple. In the sense, people used proxy servers, computers in other countries that acted as middlemen, to fetch blocked sites on their behalf. If a news site was blocked directly, you could just ask the proxy to fetch it for you and pass it along. But then the firewall adapted. Known proxy addresses were blocked in batches, keyword filters became stricter, and whole categories of content were quietly erased from the Chinese web. Next came virtual private networks, or VPNs. A VPN works like an encrypted tunnel. All the information you send is scrambled, and instead of going directly to a website, it first goes to a VPN server somewhere outside China. From there, it continues normally. The key advantage? The firewall couldn't easily raid what was inside the tunnel. Journalists, researchers, and businesses used VPNs to keep their connections private and open. For a while, VPNs were the go-to escape route. But again, the firewall learned. It began fingerprinting VPN traffic, recognizing the patterns in how certain VPN protocols sent data and then blocking them. The cat and mouse had moved to a higher level now. When the firewall started recognizing VPNs, developers came up with tools designed to hide in plain sight. One of the most influential was ShadowSox, an encrypted proxy that made its traffic look like normal, secure web browsing. This approach was called obfuscation, and it was a way to disguise a getaway car to seem like a delivery van. The idea was simple. If your connection looked exactly like millions of ordinary ones, the firewall couldn't block it without also breaking huge chunks of the internet. So other tools like V2Ray took it even further, letting users switch protocols and ports at will, making detection even harder. The response wasn't just technical, it was legal. China passed regulations making it illegal to run an unapproved VPN service. International companies were pressured to remove VPN apps from their Chinese app stores. Discussions of these tools were scrubbed from forums and messaging platforms. Technically, the firewall added active probing, testing suspicious connections by sending data to them and seeing if they behaved like circumvention tools. If they did, the system could block or blacklist them almost instantly. For all its sophistication, the firewall faces a fundamental problem. Some circumvention tools hide inside widely used protocols like HTTPS. Blocking those entirely would break essential services: online banking, shopping, cloud computing, and also grind large parts of the economy to a halt. This means the firewall operates in a careful balance, tight enough to keep most users within its boundaries, but loose enough to avoid breaking the digital infrastructure China depends on. Around the late 2010s and into the 2020s, the next big leap wasn't a new filter, but automation. Artificial intelligence began to take over parts of the censorship process. AI could scan social media in real time, instantly flagging, and even deleting posts with banned images or text. During sensitive anniversaries, like the Tiananmen Square crackdown, certain phrases could vanish within seconds of being posted. And it wasn't just about spotting known red flag words. AI systems trained on massive datasets learned to detect patterns, combinations of images, tone, or even slang that hinted at political messages without saying them outright. This made coded speech much harder to use as a workaround. By now, the Great Firewall was more than just a domestic policy. It was an international example. China began promoting its idea of cyber sovereignty, the principle that each country should control its own corner of the internet however it sees fit. Chinese companies started supplying censorship-ready technology to governments in Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. In places where leaders feared unrest, the Chinese model looked appealing. Proof that a tightly controlled internet could be maintained without shutting it down entirely. Even after all that, today new technologies keep creating headaches for the firewall. Protocols like QIC, designed for faster, more secure web traffic, have been tricky for it to filter without overblocking. Sometimes the system reacts by blocking too much, disrupting legitimate services. A sign that, for all its power, it's still playing catch-up in certain areas. The reality is that this battle will never truly end. Each time the firewall adapts, developers outside, and sometimes inside China, will try to find a new gap. Each time a new tool emerges, the state will try to close it. Today, the Great Firewall is one of the most comprehensive censorship systems ever built. It's part of a larger ecosystem that includes real name registration for online accounts, constant monitoring by human censors, and a legal framework broad enough to punish almost any kind of online dissent. For most Chinese internet users, life inside the firewall feels normal, fast, well-connected, and full of domestic platforms that provide everything they need. The bigger question is whether the rest of the world will start building walls of its own, turning today's global internet into a patchwork of national networks. If that happens, China's Great Firewall just might be remembered not just as a barrier, but as the blueprint for a new era of controlled connectivity. Please let us know what you think in the comments.